What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, MARC RYAN and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Fantastic to have you guys with us, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. We've got Chris Phillips joining us at 7 o'clock p.m. We've got a little update on in-state recruiting. The odds that South Carolina actually gets three teams into March Madness. We will talk about that on the show today as well. We'll have a fun post-Super Bowl question for you as well as onsides and offsides and so much more between the hours of 3 and 7 o'clock p.m. today. Our thanks, as always, to Brent Beard for joining us. Here's how you can take part in the show. You can give us a call at 844-326-3663. That's 844-FAN-PHONE on the Renewal by Anderson fan phone. And on the text line 71307, just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. Guys, we have a standard as a show, okay? Like we have an expectation for what a show is going to be, for what a show is going to be about, for the amount of engagement a show is going to get. Like we have a standard, okay? I would like to think that this show has elevated the standard for the Fan Upstate. And I could point to a bunch of different metrics to prove that, right? Like we set an all-time station record for downloads this year. Last year, 101,000 downloads for the show over the course of the year, by far the most ever achieved on this station. So there's a standard to expect, right? I would never, ever, ever in my life accept a lowering of that standard. Like never, ever. But so I ask you this, why then is that what I'm getting from Clemson fans? Why then is our Clemson fans now saying, well, you know, it's been a great run. We've had a great run. Dabo, he's our man. If he can't do it, nobody can. You know, and we're very grateful for the national championships and the 6 consecutive playoff berths and the conference championships. And he's elevated our program. And even if this is it for our run, we're okay with that. With all due respect, put a sock in it, please. With all due respect, pack it up, pack it in. With all due respect, boop, boop, boop. Please reverse on that take. My friends, you should never accept lowering the bar. Yet for whatever reason, that's what Clemson fans are doing right now. And I don't understand the why to that. I don't get it. There's undoubtedly Dabo raised the bar, right? If you look at Tommy Bowden's tenure at Clemson University from 1999 to 2008, Tommy Bowden produced a record of 72-45. That is a .615 winning percentage. And after 9.5 seasons, you guys, the Clemson faithful, said, this isn't good enough. An average season of 7.6 wins and 4.6 losses is not good enough. That's not good enough. 7-5, 8-5, that's not good enough. Best season for Tommy Bowden at Clemson was 9-3. Worst season for Tommy Bowden at Clemson was 6-6. No losing seasons. But when your worst season is your first season at Clemson, and your best season is your second season at Clemson, and then every other season thereafter is some hybrid of those two, you're not going to have a very happy fan base. 72-45 overall was the record, 43-32 in the All Cupcakes Conference, winning percentage of .615. Enter Dabo Swinney. Enter Dabo Swinney. In Dabo Swinney's now 15 years at Clemson, he's produced a record of 170-43. He has produced a record in the ACC of 103-23. As a matter of fact, in about half the games, Dabo Swinney has 9 fewer ACC losses than Tommy Bowden does. And, you know, Dabo Swinney's all-time record at Clemson, his all-time winning percentage, is .798, rounded up to 800. Dabo Swinney is an 800 coach at Clemson. Tommy Bowden was a 600 coach at Clemson. And now we are settling. I'm seeing Clemson fans settle for a regression to the mean under Dabo Swinney that should never be accepted. That should absolutely never be accepted. The last 3 years at Clemson, Dabo Swinney has produced a record of 30-10. That is a winning percentage of .750. That is far below the winning percentage that he produced the first 13 years of his career. So, guys, can I just say this to you? Because I would never accept a regression to the mean on this show. I would never say, hey, you know what, man? You know, I know we set records and we did this and we did that, but you know what? Like, it's cool to just lower the expectation now. It's cool to do less than what we've already done. You know what kind of mood I would be in if we just settled for that, if we just accepted that? You wouldn't like the show. You wouldn't like to be around the show. Yet for whatever reason, Clemson fans are doing that. Why? It's like Clemson fans have vaulted themselves right back from whence they came before Dabo was there. And I don't get that. Like, why would you do that to yourself? Dabo elevated the bar. Now there is a new bar. The bar never lowers after this. You never regress to the mean. You never settle for the crap that you had before Dabo was here. You don't do that. So why are you doing it now? You're all doing it. I'm seeing Clemson fans go, well, we had a great run. What a great run that it was. We truly appreciate the run. If that was our heyday, we'll let Dabo ride off into the sunset after that. Would you guys stop? You know, like, Dabo isn't retired. Your program isn't ready to get put out to pasture. What the hell are you settling for?
You know what happened in the last 10 years of Joe Paterno's tenure at Penn State? Not off the field, but what happened on the field? Tell me, what happened on the field?
Well, they regressed.
They regressed. They used to be a great program, and then they fell. And fans of Penn State were like, yeah, but we love Joe Paterno. At the time, they didn't know anything about all this Sandusky stuff. They said, we love Joe Paterno. We're going to let him stick around as long as he wants to. And they are still trying to recover. Is that what you want Clemson to be?
So, you know, Diesel, I don't think you're saying fire Dabo, are you?
No, I'm not saying fire Dabo. What I'm saying is you can't let Dabo go unchecked and have his way of things for as long as he wants them, as long as things continue to slide.
Wherever you have unchecked power, you have abuse of power. Diesel, I think Dabo's a really good man, and I think he's a really, really good human being. Would you go as far as to say Dabo has unchecked power at Clemson? I'd say probably.
Yeah.
Right?
If not, he is as close to it as it gets.
And I've said for a long time, guys, wherever there's unchecked power, there's abuse of power. I'm not saying Dabo is breaking any laws. I'm just saying that's an unhealthy place to be. And maybe the abuse of power, so to speak, is just Clemson fans allowing their program to regress to the mean. And I'm saying never do that. Diesel would never accept that for the show. I would never accept that for the show. Okay? Like, you guys know, if you listen to the show often, I tell you guys all the time, I'll meet with our boss here and I say, look, if we ever have a bad year, replace me. Replace me. Get rid of me. Because the upstate deserves better than that. Now, if we have a bad month, okay, right? Maybe there's something going on in one of our lives, but, you know, you try to have the show be a sanctuary for you where your life doesn't make it onto the air if things are not going well. But if we ever suck for a year, please replace us. Because frankly, you guys deserve better than that. Right? You do. I'm not saying Dabo Swinney has sucked. The last 3 years have been a record of 30-10. But the last 3 seasons have produced one ACC championship. That is it. A Cheez-It Bowl, a Gator Bowl, and a New Year's Six Bowl loss. 30-10, 3.3 losses a year. Tommy Bowden averaged 4.6 losses a year. Dabo, 3.3. Why on earth would you guys ever settle just because Dabo did a lot for you for a regression back to the mean? Now, I'll tell you what we've said after each and every Clemson season. Okay? We said 2018, Clemson won a national championship. 2019, Clemson made it to the national championship game, lost. That was okay because LSU was historic. 2020, okay. Well, they lost in the playoff this year. Okay, now they've gone from national championship to losing the national championship game to not winning a playoff game. 2021, no playoff. Okay, now there's a clear regression. You don't want to miss the playoff 2 years in a row. 2022, they choke against South Carolina. They do miss the playoff 2 years in a row. 2023, nowhere close to the playoff. 4-4 ACC record. 4-4 ACC record. Now, I want to bring you guys into this. Do you know what Tommy Bowden's worst record was in the ACC? Anybody? Bueller? Fry? Tommy Bowden's worst record in the ACC was 4-4. Dabo just replicated that last year. Most Tommy Bowden seasons were better than 4-4 in the ACC. So, for the love of all that is good and holy, stop settling. You know, when I met my wife, she and I told each other the same thing. I said I was going to remain single forever. I wasn't going to settle unless I met you. My wife said I was happy. You know, it was kind of hard for your ego because you have the reality that my wife didn't need me to be happy. She was happy. But unless she found somebody that was at the standard that she had for herself, she was going to remain single. Never settle. Stop settling. Clemson fans, you are settling. Please stop doing that. There is no reason for that. Have your standard. Do not allow the bar to drop. Do not allow that to fall. Let's get to Guy in Greenville. Who's up next? Guy, do you believe Clemson fans are letting their program settle? Are they settling right now?
I don't think Clemson fans are doing anything that every other school. The only school that's on the uptake right now is Georgia. Who else is on the upswing right now?
What do you mean?
I mean, last week
who else is on the upswing?
Carolina fans, but well, who is not settling right now? Because there's only one team in the last 3 years that has taken a step up, and that's Georgia.
Washington hasn't taken a step up? Wait. Washington hasn't taken a step up? Michigan hasn't taken a step up.
Yeah, well,
Texas hasn't. Okay, no, it's not about that. They've taken a step up. Alabama has maintained the bar. Ohio State has maintained the bar. LSU has maintained the bar. What's Alabama's bar? College football playoff every year. Every year. That's the bar.
I think if you ask Alabama fans, and if you ever watch the SEC network, that's not their bar.
Well, Guy, they're making the playoff every year. You can't win the national championship every year, but you can have a bar and you can set it, and you can view the season as a failure if you don't set it. I'm seeing Clemson fans, hey, we had a great run. We had a great one. It's not over. Why is it over?
Okay, Florida State, I guess, was also on an uptake too, but
yes,
I mean,
Ole Miss is on an uptake. Oregon is on an uptake. Missouri's on an uptake.
How is Oregon on an uptake?
What are you talking about? What are you, Guy? Please, I invite you to join Earth with us, Planet Earth. Oregon made it to the conference championship game. Oregon made it to a New Year's Six Bowl. Okay, Arizona is on a major uptick. They finished number 11. Where were they before? What do you mean? Who is on an uptick? No one else is on an uptick. Okay, but they're raising the bar. Dabo did it over 8 years. You shouldn't sign on to lowering the bar.
Okay, I guess I'm having trouble with your bar because you have teams that, if you go back and look at the playoffs over the last, 10 years, you're going to see different names every year.
Okay,
other than
you want to
Alabama.
know? I'll hit you with this, Guy. There have been 9 years of playoffs. 14 different teams have made the playoffs in those 9 years. That's it. In 9 years, you had 36 spots. They were filled by 14 different teams. That's it. You've got a plethora of teams hitting the bar, maintaining the bar. Why would Clemson fans allow the bar to drop? Please stop doing whataboutism. Isn't he doing whataboutism? What about them? What about them?
They went to a bowl game, so you're going to say Rutgers is on an uptake.
No, Rutgers.
Because they actually went to a bowl game for the first time since 2014. And how's Florida doing?
Florida sucks. We're not talking about Florida right now. Guy, why are you doing whataboutism right now? Like, we're not talking about every other program.
You're ripping on Clemson fans, and it's just, I don't know. I'm
ripping on Clemson fans. I'm ripping on Clemson fans, or I'm giving Clemson fans love. I'm telling them to maintain the standards that you set. You and I we are not, Guy, thank you for the call. We are not connecting today, you and I. You and I have missed each other completely. Okay? Ripping Clemson fans is what you call it. I call it encouraging Clemson fans, letting Clemson fans know that they're better than what they've gotten the last 3 years.
Tough love is still love.
That's right. I'm here to share the love with you, brother. So with all due respect, okay, cut the crap. Maintain the standards that you have.
Letting the standards fall is Clemson fans saying, well, it's okay if we don't make the 4-team playoff this year because we made it a whole bunch in the past. And we're not going to be too we're not going to be too up in arms over this. We're not going to email the athletic director. We're not going to call into local radio shows and say that something here has got to change because we like winning a lot of games. We like making the playoffs, and we're not making the playoff anymore. And it's not as fun as it used to be. That is what maintaining the standard is. Maintaining the standard, Guy, is not allowing it to slip. And what Mark is arguing is that Clemson fans are allowing the standard to slip by saying what we've done in the past was great, so it's okay if we fall off a little bit right now.
It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. We will continue this conversation next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
Offsides with Mark Ryan.
Only on the Fan Upstate.
It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Wonderful to have you guys with us. Yeah, Clemson fans, let's accept one thing here, okay? It's time for some tough love. I'm hearing way too many of you roll with, well, we had a good run under Dabo. He's our guy. No, once you raise the bar, that's the bar. It doesn't change. Dabo has an 800 winning percentage at Clemson. Tommy Bowden has a 615 winning percentage at Clemson. You guys decided that Tommy Bowden, he was good enough to be there with you for 9.5 years, but ultimately you decided that a worse season of 6-6 and a best season of 9-3 was not meeting the standard. Okay? He had a winning percentage of 615. That is almost a perfect case study. Okay, what is the bar at Clemson and what is too low? Okay, Dabo exceeded the bar at Clemson, right? But Tommy Bowden didn't hit it. His winning percentage was 615. Dabo's winning percentage is 800. So you've got a very clear definition of where the bar is. But once Dabo takes the bar and elevates it above and beyond where it's ever been before, guess what, Clemson fans? That's the new bar. You know, you like it. Only losers say, well, we did it once, but we can't expect to be held to that standard. We can't expect to be held to that. You know, like Diesel and I hit a mark for downloads last year. I'm going to tell you what, if we fell well short of that this year, neither he nor I is going to be happy. We set a record, so that doesn't mean we go back to what we did before we set the record. That means we keep pushing. We keep growing. You know, it's just the apologies that are coming out of the Clemson fan base are really something else. and I don't get it. I don't understand. Way too many of you. Well, we had a good run under Dabo. He's our guy. Once you raise the bar, that's the bar. It doesn't change. Never settle for a regression to the mean. That is my MO to you. That is the tough love, my motivating speech to you. Do not okay lowering the bar. Do not okay that. Never settle for that. Okay? You guys push the envelope. You guys set the standard. You guys establish what the goals are for your team.
It seems as if a lot of Clemson fans who call into our show and who try to apologize for Dabo slipping this past season, they are looking at things like, well, we missed a 14 playoff, but it's okay because we had a lot of success in the past. And now with the expansion of the playoff to 12 or 14 or wherever it may eventually go, you may get in by virtue of them allowing more teams in. The college football playoff has lowered the bar of what it's required to get in. But that doesn't mean that your team is back to where it used to be. You're only back to where you used to be if you're sitting in the top 4 going into the playoff. Otherwise, you're below where you used to be. That's the beautiful thing. You can look at that number right next to your name and see that you're not reaching the bar that you used to reach. You used to be number 1 in the country. Well, now you're number 12. That's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. Making the playoff as number 1 is not the same thing as making the playoff as number 12.
Well, we will soon see, my friends. We will soon see. Diesel's right. Diesel's right. I mean, look at the finishes for Clemson. Okay, look at the finishes. Clemson finishes number 20 last year. Okay, they finished number 20. 2022, Clemson finishes number 12, number 13. 2021, Clemson finishes number 14. Number 14, number 13, number 20. It's okay to have high standards. It's okay to say we're letting the bar slip right now, and we're not going to allow that to happen. Texter says, Mark Ryan, Clemson fired Ken Hatfield to hire Bowden. He was 32-13 when they fired him. Texter says, if things keep going the way they are at Clemson, we could see Clemson fall off their rocker real fast. Real fast. All right, my friends. Coming up next on the show, what should the standard be at South Carolina? We've got some thoughts. We'll share that with you on the flip side. Here on the show that gives you both sides. Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate.
With Mark Ryan.
This is
The Fan.
Upstate.
What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Thrilled to have you guys with us. Could not do it without you. Appreciate you greatly. So, yeah, guys, look, every once in a while, we all need a little bit of tough love, okay? Every once in a while, we all need it, all right? So that, to me, is what I'm here to give today to Clemson fans. Way too many, and I'm not saying all of you guys are like this, but way too many of you are like, oh, well, you know what? We had a great run under Dabo, and if that's it, he's earned the right to go out on his own terms, and, we'll never challenge him for what he's done. We'll love him forever. It's okay to both A, appreciate what somebody's done, and B, expect them to maintain the level of excellence that they established. Okay? That's okay. That's totally fine. Right? Totally fine. At the same token, Like you're not being disrespectful to say, Dabo, look, the last few years, we haven't been at that 800 plus winning percentage. The last few years, we've been at 750. You raised the bar. We give you credit for raising the bar, but the bar stays where you raised it. We got a call. His name was Guy, and he's like, hey, Mark, who else has a raised bar? Like whataboutism is one of the lowest forms of debate, Gus. Like we've got to do better than that. Whataboutism traces all the way back to when you had a sister that was eating more candy than you, and you said, Mommy, what about her? And like for some reason, we're still doing that. And it's one of our favorite comebacks whenever we feel like our team is being falsely or singled out in the crosshairs. Okay, like stop it with this. Like Clemson set the bar of being a top 3, top 5 national championship team. And the last 3 years, they've dropped to number 20, they've dropped to number 13, and they dropped to number 14. You're not a bad fan. You're not against your program for saying, look, guys, I notice an issue here. We expect you to maintain the bar that you've set. There's no problem with that. Now, on the other side of the coin is the South Carolina Gamecocks. And, like as we're talking about setting standards, and because I know that many of you are going to be throwing out whataboutism in our direction, okay, what about this? What about that? What about them? Which is, for whatever reason, it's what we do. I don't get why. I don't understand the why. I don't fully get it. But, what should the standard at South Carolina be? Like, admittedly, Steve Spurrier set the bar, and no one has been able to maintain the bar that Steve Spurrier set. Spurrier has the best winning percentage all time at South Carolina. Okay. Steve Spurrier at South Carolina won 86 times in 135 games. That is a winning percentage of 637. Okay. That's not a very high bar, if I'm honest with you. 637. Steve Spurrier in the SEC was 44-40. Steve Spurrier in the SEC won 52% of his games. That is not an overly high bar, if I'm honest with you. So, look, guys, I'm here to be reasonable. I'm here to understand that, history plays a part of this. But at the same token, the only thing that South Carolina has missing, has been the right leader to lead them. That's it. Before Clemson had Dabo Swinney, they were South Carolina, essentially. They just played in an easier conference, okay? Nondescript, one national championship, kind of a regression to the mean after that national championship. South Carolina is only missing the elite head coach. They're only missing the guy, okay? So if Steve Spurrier sets the bar with a winning percentage of 637, Shane Beamer right now is giving you 526. I think a very fair and very, very reasonable bar is 600. 600. Be a 600 team year after year. That's an average year of 8-5. That's what Tommy Bowden put up at Clemson. 7.6 wins, 4.6 losses.
Well, the way you're scheduling out of conference, you should be able to pick up at least 3 guaranteed wins, and you should be beating Clemson, if not 50-50. You should be winning 2 out of 5, 3 out of 10, something like that. You got to be winning at least 3 out of 10.
Yeah, this year, Diesel, Old Dominion.
Win.
Akron.
Win.
Vanderbilt.
Win.
Wofford.
Win.
I mean, that's your non-conference schedule.
Well, Vanderbilt is a conference game.
Yeah, that's a conference game, but it's still a win, right?
Right.
Then they have Clemson in the non-conference too. So, Diesel, if you go in those 4 games, Old Dominion, Akron, Vanderbilt, Wofford, you go 4-0. You've got, including a bowl game, you have 9 more games. If you go 4-5 in those remaining 9 games, you hit the bar. You hit the standard. Give South Carolina a 600. The standard should be reach 600. Steve Spurrier was 637. Now, his best years were better than that. But all told at South Carolina, 637. So how about a bar of 600? You know, at the University of Florida, you got to be at 700 or better to keep your job. Dan Mullen fell just short. Once he did, he was replaced. Okay? South Carolina doesn't have Florida standards. But as we increase and as we grow, and it's great to grow as a program, right? South Carolina can expect to do better things. And so why not increase that standard right now? Why not establish what the standard is for your team? You are a South Carolina Gamecock fan. Okay? You are a South Carolina Gamecock fan. What do you think about this? What should your standard be? 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us on the show. And you can give us a call on the Renewal by Anderson fan phone at 844-326-3663. That's 844-326-3663 is the number to get to us on the show today. 71307 on the text line is where you guys can get to us. Texter wants to know, could we see Clemson fall and South Carolina rise? I mean, I suppose anything is possible, but I think we've seen Shane Beamer kind of struggle with, getting to a firm foundation with what South Carolina is. He's had a mass exodus every single year. Diesel, buy or sell South Carolina. The standard should be a 600 winning percentage. They are roughly 500. They're roughly mediocre for their career. You want to set a new standard. Shane Beamer's 523. Steve Spurrier's 637. Give me 600. 600 winning percentage.
Yeah, I mean, I buy that. That's a program that fancies itself as a program on the rise. South Carolina fans love talking about, the branding situation they've got going on, the recording studio that you've got in there. You talk about how great Williams-Brice Stadium is. You talk about how great the atmosphere is, that you show up no matter what, unless the weather's bad. But you're not getting the wins for it. And I understand completely that the SEC is a very difficult conference to win it. It is very difficult to have upward mobility in the SEC. It's going to be real tough, not impossible, but real tough for South Carolina to become where Tennessee is right now, to get where Georgia is right now, to get where Alabama is right now. That's a very difficult place to achieve. There's a reason why only a handful of those programs do it. There's not this churn like there is in the NFL. The elite programs stay elite because they do everything at an elite level. And somewhere in the organization, somewhere in the program, there are breakdowns. You have to identify one of those breakdowns and improve it. That's how you start incrementally building up and up and up and up and up. So 600, I'm fine with 600, especially if you're going to do what Chris Phillips wants them to do, which is schedule as easy as possible out of conference. You can't schedule as easy as possible and say, well, we went 5-7 this year. No, it doesn't work that way.
Texter says, Mark, seems like you're taking a shot at South Carolina on their out-of-conference schedule. Well, no, Texter, it's more so that South Carolina and under Beamer has now put themselves in the class of the program that is just fighting to make a bowl game. Kentucky does that every year. Rutgers does that every year. Indiana does that every year. I think it's weak sauce, personally. That mindset says, okay, for us, making a bowl game is critically important. We got to go 4-0 at our non-conference. We got to go 2-6 in the rest of our games, and that gets us to 6-6 in a bowl game. Is that, Texter, if that's where you want to settle as a Clemson fan, if that's where you want to settle as a Gamecock fan, then settle there. Okay, but that's not what I would recommend.
That mentality says we would schedule 3 FCS teams if we could and have them all count for bowl eligibility.
Yes.
You would if you could.
Why would you do that? Texter says the only way to go is up when you're at rock bottom. Texter, the Gamecocks aren't at rock bottom. Vanderbilt is at rock bottom. South Carolina is, mid-level. They're middling. Like they know they're middling. They're trying to rise up. Clemson is not middling, but, Clemson is that girl at the high school reunion that doesn't look the way she used to, and she's trying to hang on, Diesel. She's trying. Like she's got all the makeup. She's got the cheap tanning spray on. She's fighting against all that she has to maintain that appearance that she had, that youthful appearance.
What you're saying is Clemson is in danger of being a peaked in high school kind of program.
Yeah.
You peaked,
yeah,
and you fell off.
Yeah. And I'm saying, don't let that happen. Fight for that. Maintain that. This should never be hey, we had a good run. Now we'll gladly take our place in the corner as an also-ran in college football. Okay? As an also-ran. Last 3 seasons. Okay? Last 3 seasons. You guys, your average finish ranking was 16th. That's not meeting the standard. And I'm not about to hit you with the best is the standard thing, because I understand what Dabo means by that. Everybody doing their best, everybody achieving their best. But you and I both know that if that was actually taking place, okay, like if that was actually happening here, then you would be better than you are. If everyone was achieving their potential, you'd be better than you are. There's nothing wrong with saying that. There's nothing wrong with admitting that truth. Texter says, Mark, I agree. 600 should be the bar at South Carolina. The bar at Clemson should be 900 because they are in the ACC. So says JT and Greer. JT and Greer, nobody is 900. Nobody. The best coaches consistently are at about an 800 winning percentage. That's 4 out of 5. That represents the elite of the elite of the elite in college football. Okay? And so, I've seen it over the course of my career. 600 at Florida gets you fired. 700 and the fan base will tolerate you, but they're a little squeamish. 800 is the expectation. Elite level is the expectation. Dabo just went under 800 at Clemson. 798 is Dabo at Clemson. Is that okay for you? Is that okay? Guys, it's okay to have standards. It's okay not to budge on the standards that you have. And if you're a South Carolina fan, it's okay to set a standard. It's okay to establish what that standard is and set that standard. You certainly can do that. 71307 is where you can get to us on the text line. Coming up next on the show. If you think this team is going to be right back at it because of their talent level, not so fast, my friend. That's next. And this is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
Favorite.
It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Johnny Carrots tweets in, show me where Clemson fans are saying this. I don't know a single person that thinks, well, we had a good run, but it's over. I guess we run in different circles of fans. Very much so, Johnny Carrots. Very, very much so. Sometimes, guys, it gets me when people are like, I haven't heard that. I don't know anybody. So it's like, if you don't know anybody in your circle, right, that means it doesn't happen. That means it doesn't exist.
We live in a world where people say, I don't like other people. I only like my dogs. I don't talk to anyone else. And then they say, well, I don't know anybody. Well, because you don't know anybody. You only know your dogs.
Would you guys agree as well? And look, guys, I'm not critical of you, okay? We're not being critical of you. Would you guys agree as well that, like, Diesel and I are exposed to a larger portion of the Clemson fan base than you are? Definitely, right? You're exposed to your circle and your family and friends. We're exposed to darn near everybody. Okay. The number one market for this show's downloads is in Columbia, South Carolina. We're exposed to darn near everybody. So believe me when I tell you, no, Dabo's not in trouble. He's had a good run, blah, blah, blah. Guys, it's okay if you're a Clemson fan to say, I'm concerned. I'm concerned with what I've seen. I'm concerned with where things are and where things are going. I'm concerned. That's okay. Why wouldn't that be an okay thing to say? I don't get that. I don't understand that at all. We're here to have common sense discussions here. Okay? We're here to say, hey, Dabo, we got to call you to the carpet a little bit. Because I will tell you this, Johnny Carrots, I haven't seen one Clemson fan call Dabo to the carpet. Say, hey, Dabo, the last 3 years, our average finish is number 16. That is a lowering of the bar, right? That's a lowering of the bar. We don't want the bar to be lowered around here. So what are we going to do about it? It's okay to express concern, is really what I want to say. If you're a Gamecock fan, it's okay to have elite level standards. That's okay. Texter says, Mark, it's amazing how one bad year and how soon everyone forgets 2022. I think it's a building process via recruiting and the portal. This year's minimum should be 6 or 7. Next year should be 7 or 8. If they go 5 or worse this season, they need to make changes at head coach. Well, Texter, realize for a minute, you're telling me this year should be 6 or 7. So you're saying in year 4 of a head coach, 6 wins is good enough for you. Do you not see the problem with that? In year 4, no one's forgotten 2022. It's just that, the feeling was that was going to be the trend at South Carolina under Shane Beamer and not a blip. And it looks like it's a little bit of a blip, right? Texter says, Mark, 800 winning percentage is getting that fool Ryan Day fired at Ohio State. It might. I've never seen one coach under more pressure to win a game than Ryan Day is at Ohio State. Never seen it, never witnessed it in my entire existence. Texter says, if you say 800 at Clemson allows for 2 losses per season, and I think that's okay, but probably not championship level. Georgia and Alabama are expected to go 11-1 every year. But JT and Greer, the bottom line is when you factor in the good seasons and the bad seasons, okay, 800 is the mark of elite head coaches. That's the mark, okay? And that's always been the mark of elite head coaches, okay? That's the way it is. That's what it is in that sport, okay? Best all-time record in college football, Newt Rockne, winning percentage of .881. Frank Leahy, winning percentage of .864 is up next, followed by Urban Meyer. Among active coaches, well, they still have an active next to Nick Saban. They got to remove that little star. Nick Saban was .806. Dabo Swinney is .798. Brian Kelly is way down the list at .729. So you see what we're saying here, right? Jim Tressel, .828. Bob Stoops, $7.99. Chris Peterson at Boise State and Washington, $7.95. The elite head coaches traditionally put out a record of 800. Okay? 700 is good. Will not get you fired most places. Mark Richt at Georgia and Miami was 728. That's what we think of Mark Richt. He was good. Mark Richt was a good head coach. You feel good if he's your head coach, right? James Franklin is right under 700 winning percentage, right under that mark. But as you guys see, that is the mark that has been set. Either you exceed on that or you don't. And that's how it goes. All right, my friends. So I wanted to quickly shift gears to this. My dad always said this to me. And, like whenever my teams would have a tough loss and my dad was always just insanely and eternally positive, my old man would say to me, Mark, we'll get him next year. Like that's what everybody says, right? He's not reinventing the wheel. We'll get him next year. And so I wanted to just take a quick look and see what are the odds that you actually do get him next year. Okay, what are the odds? Because we just saw the San Francisco 49ers make it to the Super Bowl. Was their second time making it to the Super Bowl in the last 5 years? Was their fourth time making it to the conference championship game in the last 5 years? We saw Kansas City last 5 years. We witnessed that, right? But here's the reality. If you think the 49ers are going to make it right back to the Super Bowl because they are just supremely talented, I would say to you, not so fast, my friend. Since 2000, only 3 of 23 Super Bowl losers have made it back to the Super Bowl within 5 years. Jim Kelly's Buffalo Bills, Peyton Manning's Broncos, Tom Brady's Patriots. Patrick Mahomes lost a Super Bowl in 2020 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He became the fourth. Okay, so now 4 in 24 years have made it back to the Super Bowl within 5 years. 4 out of 24. That's 1 and 6 within 5 years. Not next year, San Francisco, within 5 years. So when you guys hear me say that, man, you know what? I look at the 49ers, I look at Kyle Shanahan, every active coach that has won a Super Bowl did so between year 2 at his team and year 7 at his team. When I look at that fact and I honor that fact, okay, that was year 7 for Kyle Shanahan at San Francisco. That may have been his last shot. That may have been it for him. That may have been all she wrote. What happens after year 7? I have no idea. I don't know why that's the statistic. I'd have to talk to GMs and owners and coaches to fully grasp that. Does the message get stale? Is there a loss of belief in the team at this point? But realize, my friends, that the odds are completely against Kyle Shanahan now getting over the hump at San Francisco. Completely against him, right? The odds are completely against him. So that's what I would say. You know what I mean? That's what I would say. We're getting a lot of comments on the Dabo Swinney commentary. A lot of people are saying, I haven't heard Clemson fans say this, yet we have Clemson dudes saying, he's my guy, because I know we will be back on top. Next year starts the new run, #Go Tigers. Texter says, Mark, what was June Jones' overall record? Texter, you're more than welcome to look that up. More than welcome to look that up if you'd like. Texter says, Mark, I thought South Carolina was going to be 8-4 last year. 2023 was a massive regression from the expectations after beating Tennessee and Clemson in 2022. Texter wants to know if the Clemson faithful have gone soft. I think the Clemson faithful are a little bit at a crossroads. You know, like they're at a little bit of a crossroads right now. They have done everything together. They have stayed together. They have been all in. But for the first time, there are dissenting opinions within the Clemson fan base. Should you, as a Clemson fan base, just be blindly appreciative for everything Dabo Swinney has done? Just blindly appreciative? Or should you be a little bit concerned? You know, like I think Clemson fans and Dabo are at a point where if we got to that point on this show, it would be like, you know, we had 6 months where we were just kind of listless. And my boss brought us into a meeting and said, guys, we love you. We love the show. Dabo, we love you. We love the program. But the last 6 months have just kind of felt like they've lacked a little bit of juice. You guys do an ass-kicking show. You know, we take no prisoners. You want the truth, you can't handle the truth. That's our MO on the show. But if we just kind of came here and went through the motions and we're kind of listless, I think it might take about 6 months for my boss to bring us in and say, guys, let's look at what's going on here. We're a little bit concerned with what we're hearing. That's where we are with Dabo. No one's saying fire him. We're just like, okay, you know, like this is not Clemson was the it program for a while. Clemson is no longer the it program. It's okay to have a meeting about it. It's okay to be concerned about it. It's okay to say we're not willing to lower the bar. We've got Chris Phillips joining you next right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate.
State.
It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Thrilled to have you guys with us on a Monday edition of the show. Joined right now by our good friend Chris Phillips of the SEC Unfiltered. Now covering not one, but 16 SEC teams. Chris Phillips joins us right now on the show. Hey, Chris, what's good, man? How's life?
Mark, doing well, man. Appreciate you having me on. You and Diesel both. Baseball season has officially begun, getting in full swing. We got a great slate this weekend, guys, I would tell you. I know there's still some in the area and just some folks in general that maybe aren't quite sold on college baseball. This upcoming weekend will be a great weekend to catch games. South Carolina, Clemson taking place, of course. We've also got Florida, Miami. We've got Georgia, Georgia Tech. We've got some great tournament play upcoming. It's going to be electric.
So, Chris, I want to share this with you because, we are all products of our environments. Each and every one of us is. College baseball is a big deal here. It hasn't been a big deal everywhere else I've ever worked. Okay? I've gotten into it here. And when you get into it, you realize, man, how is this postseason really much different at all than March Madness? And if March Madness is such a big deal, why isn't college baseball's postseason a bigger deal nationally? At best, it's probably a big deal locally. At best, it's a big deal regionally. Chris, the national ratings on average, Final Four versus College Baseball World Series. 11 for the Final Four, 1 for the College Baseball World Series. 11-1, Chris. Why?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons, Mark, when you unpack it. I think number one, think about what makes March Madness great. The buzzer beaters, the dramatics, the upsets. I think you get some of those in college baseball, but you're not necessarily getting buzzer beaters. It's 3-game series instead of just 1 game do or die. It's, the College World Series even is a double elimination format. And I think, as you've pointed out, Mark, at times when there is no safety net to catch you, right, the game is being a little bit more and there's more dramatics and there's even more flair.
But 1 game, Chris, that's not much of a safety net. I mean, you wouldn't want baseball, a sport as random as that, to be, best of 1, right?
Well, I agree. I agree. I agree with you 110%, but I think that is part of the reason. I think the other reason, though, Mark, too, the gambling aspect. I mean, I still think, obviously, basketball is far more gambled on, especially at the collegiate level. I mean, right now, it's really difficult to ever really even find a college baseball line anywhere or throw any bets down. So I think the gambling aspect of March Madness really, it elevates it to a level unlike anything else. And again, I think baseball is just still kind of a niche sport, admittedly, Mark. So I think those reasons, I think college baseball is doing a great job of catching up, right? I think the postseason, we're seeing it grow and grow. And certainly the attendance numbers at the College World Series are second to no other postseason tournament. But, March Madness, I mean, it stands alone, man. There's nothing really like it.
Well, how come then, Chris, college softball is also beating college baseball? I mean, the Women's Softball World Series is beating the College World Series. What does that say to you?
Well, Mark, I think one of the reasons probably is college softball. It's a faster paced game. I mean, I think that's the one knock against baseball. And I think that's why you saw, the pitch clock come into play in the major leagues. And I think the biggest knock against baseball is the slowest paced game of any of the major sports. You know what I mean? It's not everybody can sit through 9 innings. It can get a little lethargic at times. But I don't have the numbers pulled up in front of me. When you talk about how much game action there actually is in a baseball game, it's not very much. You know what I mean? So you have to really enjoy and love the nuances of it, if you will, I think, to appreciate the game of baseball at times. But that's one of the beauties of it, too, is that you can take a friend out to a ball game and sit there and have a cold beverage and pay attention to none of the game and still really enjoy yourself. But I think softball, if you watch it, Mark, it's a really fun, high-energy, fast-paced, field is smaller, plays are happening quicker. And, I think that'd probably be why. But outside of that, I don't really know. I mean, I know the Women's College World Series does really well. So that's, that's an interesting number for sure.
Chris is a longtime college baseball fan. How have you seen college baseball as a whole change over the past few years to make it more exciting? I'm looking at the home runs per game stats in college baseball right now. There are 19 programs that have over 15 home runs on the season so far. There's a dozen, almost 20 programs that are averaging 2 homers a game. Offense seems to be way up. That would suggest to say that offense is way up. But in what other ways are you seeing college baseball become more exciting even over the past 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think Diesel for sure. First off, they've done different things to the baseball to make it fly further. I mean, I think trying to deny that would be just false, right? I mean, you go back to 2010 when the BB Core era started and they changed up the bats and everything, and they needed to, right? Because it was like the baseball was coming off a trampoline when guys would hit it and got to a point where it was actually kind of dangerous. But I remember 2010 when they kind of, they killed the bats, if you will. And I think Texas that year, Texas went to the College World Series and didn't hit any home runs. Basically, the offense was lethargic, but they had like a 1.6 team ERA. So the game really sided towards the pitchers. And I think you're seeing, obviously now, guys, folks love 99 mile an hour, 100 mile an hour fastballs. They love 500-foot home runs. They love the fireworks. And so the baseball has come around. The bats have kind of evened out. Offense certainly has taken control. So, I also think the players, Diesel, just getting better, just flat out getting better. The product of the college game as a whole, because the players have gotten so much better. I mean, it's like watching, I think I mentioned this to you either last week or 2 weeks ago. It's like watching Double A. You know what I mean? It's kind of what you're watching. Like, these are the stars of tomorrow in the major leagues, at least in the SEC. So I think that's been the biggest difference, man. I think it's just the players have improved. I think the game, offensively, it's favoring the offensive guys. And, you're seeing a lot more home runs on a consistent basis. So, again, that's bringing a lot more electricity. And I think, too, with NIL, I think the beauty of that is maybe some guys that were going straight to the draft and going to the pros or deciding to go to school, play a couple years at college. And so, again, more great players are coming to the SEC and going to college baseball and playing well. I also think, guys, like the game, I think the game has always been really, really exciting, but I think it's getting more exposure now. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. And I still think it's extremely under televised, right? Like this past weekend, we had Arkansas, Oregon State, and, we had that, the college baseball series down in Arlington with all these great teams, a couple that are probably going to be in the College World Series. And you had to pay $30 for a Flow baseball subscription to watch it, right? And that was weekend one as well. Tennessee was in that tournament, and you couldn't watch it unless you pay for that subscription. I think we're going to get more so to the days where maybe a network like ESPN or some other network picks that up where folks can really watch that and we can get even more exposure. But I mean, I think all of the streaming options with ESPN Plus, SEC Network Plus, and all the postseason obviously being on TV, SEC Network picking up, televising all these SEC games. I just think it's getting more exposure, and people are seeing how exciting the product really is. But, guys, it's like anything else. As the players get better, I think the game gets better and more exciting, and that's what we've seen.
Chris Phillips joining us here. SEC Unfiltered is his brand here on Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, we are the Fan Upstate. Chris, we've had a discussion on standards here on the show today. And, my belief is we're seeing from some Clemson fans a lowering of the bar. I don't think you should ever be okay with lowering the bar. It sounds something like this. We had a good run under Dabo. It was great. He's our guy. He's earned the right to always be our guy. If we never get back, he's our guy. The elite mark for head coaches, Chris, is an 800-plus winning percentage. Dabo was there. He isn't there anymore. The last 3 seasons, Clemson football has produced a 7. Tommy Bowden was 615. He got 9 years. Very clearly, they established 615 winning percentage is not meeting the bar. Do you get the sense that the bar is slipping at Clemson a little bit?
I do, Mark. I do slightly. Because to your point, I mean, I see this a lot on social media too, right? I think last year when Dabo was being a little bit passive aggressive, and even at times just flat out being aggressive and going at Tyler from Spartanburg and others, and talking about, I believe you mentioned, he said the 2.9% or the 2% of fans or whatever, the bottom percentage of Clemson folks that kind of ruined it for everybody else. But, when you set best is the standard and you're not reaching the best, then, I think you have to look back at yourself and look in the mirror and say, what are we not doing? And I think Clemson fans, I think some folks out there are excusing it. I think it's because, you grow to it's people take it so personally with the coaches are like your family and the players are like your kids. Darned if anybody's going to say anything negative or critical of those people. But, again, I've seen a lot of Clemson fans, Mark, on social media that have complained about, hey, Dabo, you're the one that set the standard, that best is the standard. And, it's not being met. And I think there's some that are certainly excusing that. But I think a lot of people are very irritated with it, honestly. And I think, we saw last season Dabo lose some of that goodwill that he had built up. Even a guy like Dabo Sweeney, who's won a pair of national championships, it can happen quickly. No coach, I always say, is immune to the effects of losing, right? And if you start losing, doesn't matter what you have done, it's what have you done lately type of business. So, Mark, I think I think the standard, you could argue it's slipping a bit because I think, especially as college football changes, people are going to try to justify with, with the portal now, with NIL and with conference realignment and this and that. And there's always an excuse, right? There's nothing better to have in your back pocket than a good excuse. So I think certainly you can feel that somewhat. And for Clemson, Mark, I would say there's really no excuse for them. I know Florida State has come along, but I hate to pull up the conference thing, but being in the ACC, it's nothing like being in the SEC, where there's no reason, in my opinion, Clemson, they've got every single advantage. They play in an SEC stadium. They've got SEC resources and support. There is absolutely no reason Clemson football shouldn't be winning double-digit games and be at the top of the ACC. So, and I think anybody who doesn't agree with that, I think is lowering the bar for what they've been for so long.
Chris, if the South Carolina men's team played the South Carolina women's team and spotted them 20 points, who would win?
Diesel, these are always just such fun questions. The men would win. The men would win. I just, come on, man. The women are great. The women
Wait. What would the score be? Men versus women. Give me the score, Chris.
It wouldn't be close.
Okay.
It wouldn't be close.
I'll give you the score. I'll give you the score. You ready?
Okay.
80-40.
Yeah, that's fair. It's guys. I remember back in the day when I worked in the corporate world. When I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was in a sales position at the time, and so there were like a lot of former college athletes that worked there. That just seemed to be kind of the thing to do. A lot of whatever. Anyways, there was a group of guys there, a group of 5 guys that were former like D2 or D1, whatever, former college basketball players. Obviously, they were washed up, right? 5 or 6 years they played. And there was a bet going around the office that they felt like, and this is when UConn was number 1, they felt like that they could start a pickup team and beat UConn, the UConn Huskies.
We've had a similar person here, Chris. We have the owner of Stack's Original Restaurant, Michael Stathakis, is in his mid to late 30s. And he believes he could get like his soccer playing buddies that had like a men's league at the Y could beat the U.S. women's national team. Like he believes that. Like it's crazy how wide the opinions are, how widely off they are, aren't they?
Chris, if you want to see this play out in real life, I don't know if you're a golfer. I don't know if you follow much, but one of my favorite golf YouTubers, his name is Rick Shields. He plays golf with the elite players on the tour, like Tommy Fleetwood, guys like that. And he gets spotted 10 strokes, and all he has to do is end up level par with him, and he loses every single time. Like, he is a good golfer in his own right, but he is not a tour level golfer. That is a very different thing.
Yeah, I just think, guys, again, and it's no knock against the women. Like, I just don't think it is at all. But like when you look at the physical matchup, they just don't stand a chance. They're getting beat up and bullied all day. So I would take the South Carolina men's team. Even if you asked me this question last year when that team was terrible, I still take the South Carolina men's team just from the physical aspect. And I've always thought that question was funny, and I've always had the same answer. The worst men's team would beat the best women's team.
All right, my friends, here we go. Let us do this, Chris. Let us do this. So, South Carolina, their standard, Chris. Steve Spurrier put up a 637. A majority of head coaches at that school have been under 500. Set the bar for me, Chris. 8-5 would be 615. That got Tommy Bowden fired at Clemson, but that's the ACC, All Cupcakes Conference. This is the land of kings, the SEC. Why not, Chris, a 600 winning percentage bar? Right now, Beamer's at 523. 600 would get you fired at Florida. Gamecocks don't have the same expectation at Florida. Dan Mullen got fired when he fell under 700 at the University of Florida. Okay, 800 is elite, 700 is good. How about the bar? Let's set the bar 600 for the Gamecocks. Gamecocks football, what do you say?
I think that's fair. I mean, I think you can go a little bit above that, Mark, and say 625. I know Steve Spurrier was at 637, and he's the greatest to ever do it. So, but to your point, Mark, I mean, at some point you have to raise the bar. You have to raise your expectations. I mean, it's very, very easy to sit here and say that, South Carolina has always been what they've always been, and they always be what they've always been, and we could just, write them off for the rest of eternity, and they'll be a 6-6, 5-7 program forever. But if you don't want to be that, at some point you can't accept that, and you do have to raise the expectations. You do have to raise the standards, and you do have to raise the bar. So, to your point, I think that is fair. I think that is, I've always said, Mark, that I really do believe that realistic expectations for South Carolina football year in, year out. And I want to keep in mind, you got to walk before you can run, right? So, obviously you want to get to the point where you're expecting double-digit win seasons, where you have Clemson's type of expectations. If you don't get to the college football playoff, it's a bad year, right? Those are great expectations to have, but you got to walk before you can run. I think realistic expectations for South Carolina on a year in, year out basis, you are a program winning 8 to 9 games per year, and every, let's just say, 3 to 4 years, conservatively, 3 to 4 years, you've got the right quarterback, or you're a veteran team, or you did really well in the portal, or the schedule breaks well your way, right? You have a favorable schedule, and you can make the playoff. Like, I think that is realistic expectations for South Carolina. And some folks may disagree. Either they're too conservative or they're too aggressive, but I think those are realistic. And so, to your point, Mark, that would probably require above a 625 winning percentage. But I don't see why South Carolina can't be an 8-win per year program. I don't know why over the course of a decade they can't average 8 wins per year. You know what I mean? They've always been a 500 program, always been 6-6. And I don't really know what the reason is. It's hard to point to one thing or another, but I do think, to your point, Mark, that should be the standard. That should be the minimum expectation, whether that's you evaluate a coach after 3 years, after 4 years, after 5. If you're not meeting that standard, you really have to ask yourself as a Gamecock fan, is doing what we've always done good enough, being 500, going 6-6, or to your point, should there be a minimum expectation of you need to be at this bar at minimum to continue to have a future here? And I think that's a question that the Gamecocks very well may have to face sooner rather than later.
Chris, there's still 3 quality opponents left on the basketball schedule. 2 of them ranked. Texas A&M is sitting, I think they were sitting as the first one out or maybe the last one in on the most recent bracketology. 7 seed is where they're projected right now. Are they a lock no matter what happens over the remainder of the season? So 4 games left in the regular season. Let's say you take a bath in 3 out of those 4. I don't think that's going to happen. But let's just say you take a bath in 3 out of 4 and you stink it up in the SEC men's tournament. Are they still in the NCAA tournament in your mind?
Diesel, I would love to say yes, but I recall a couple years ago when South Carolina, I believe they set a record you did not want to set. There had never been an SEC team, I think, it was 25 wins, I think, overall, that had gotten left out of the NCAA tournament, and they did that. I'll just say this, Diesel. Would I say they're in? I would say they're probably in, but you never want to leave it up in the hands of the committee when you're a school like South Carolina that does not have great history and tradition.
Currently sitting in the 40s in the net.
They may, to that point, they may do what they did a few years ago and look at South Carolina and look at Syracuse and say, you know what? This team may have more wins, but they kind of struggled down the stretch, or they did this, they did that. But we know Syracuse. They're a brand. Let's put them in instead.
Okay,
you know what I mean? So,
but Chris, if I could, like, the net doesn't use helmet scouting. Okay, the net is all analytics and computers. The net doesn't care what you've done or what prestige level your program has. Why the hell is Gamecock basketball in the 40s in the net? something that doesn't care what you've done in the past. Well, explain that to me.
That's a great point, Mark. I mean, I think we've talked before that thankfully there's people that are much smarter than me that figure that out. We've seen it. The numbers all year have not liked South Carolina. The computers don't like them for whatever reason, and they just keep winning. So to you guys' point, I mean, as long as South Carolina continues to win, they do have I think that game against Texas A&M is really tricky. Buzz Williams that Texas A&M team is one of those teams you just can't figure out. They're one of the most inconsistent teams, I think, in college basketball, but at their place, right? I mean, any road atmosphere in the SEC, and like you mentioned, A&M's they're going to be desperate on Wednesday night. They've got to have it. They're right there on the edge, right there on the bubble. So I don't think the Gamecocks are going to go 1-3 in their Final Four either. But you got that A&M game. You've got Tennessee again at Colonial Life Arena. So some really tough matchups upcoming. And I mean, if you want to help your case go 500 or better, win a game or two in Nashville in the SEC tournament, you're going to be 110% it. But to your point, Mark, I don't know why the computers hate South Carolina. I don't know if it's because they don't win flashy or they don't do things in a sexy way, but I mean, all they do is win, and that's really all that matters.
His name is Chris Phillips, owns, runs, operates SEC Unfiltered. Why cover one SEC team when you can cover 16? He does so very, very well. Thank you, pal. As always, we appreciate catching up with you.
Mark and Diesel, appreciate you guys. You have a great week.
All right, and we will hit you with the top 5 at 5 when we come back here on the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Thrilled to have you guys with us. Here is how you guys can take part of the show. You can give us a call on the Renewal by Anderson fan phone. That is 844 FANFONE 844-326-3663. You can hit us on the text line at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. All right, my friends, it is time for us to do that jam. We call it the top 5 at 5, the top 5 biggest sports stories of the day. It is the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstate, Offsiders. The top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
5.
All right, at number 5 on the show today. Here we go. You know, some might say, my dad always said to me, Mark, we'll get him next year. There's always next year. Well, unless there isn't. Some might say, well, the 49ers are so loaded, they're bound to be back next year. I went back and I looked at all the teams that made the Super Bowl and lost between 2000 and 2024. Here's what I found. If you lose the Super Bowl, only 4 out of 24 teams made it back to the Super Bowl within 5 years. 4 out of 24. Okay? 5-year window. 4 out of 24. Only Jim Kelly's Bills, Peyton Manning's Broncos, Tom Brady's Patriots, and now Patrick Mahomes' Chiefs have done the trick. There's a 1 in 6 chance you'll make it back to the Super Bowl within 5 years. Another problem for Kyle Shanahan. Every single team that has won the Super Bowl, among active head coaches who have done so, have done the trick between year 2 and year 7 in their current coach's tenure. Kyle Shanahan just finished year 7 with San Fran. What happens after year 7? I really have no idea. Message gets stale, team loses belief in the leader. Who knows? But my feeling is that San Francisco might have just rolled the dice on their last opportunity by the Bay. Next up,
4,
This is interesting. DeMonte Capehart now back with Clemson after a gun charge. This has got to be on the all-word team. Was expunged. Expunged, the gun charge was. Clemson defensive tackle DeMonte Capehart back with the team after weapon and traffic charges were expunged through a pretrial intervention program for first-time offenders charged with violent crimes, per ESPN.com and the Associated Press. Capehart was arrested and charged earlier this month with unlawfully possessing a firearm on campus. Wow. And failure to exercise due care while operating a motor vehicle. Both charges were dropped late last week, according to online state records. Capehart completed the pretrial program, a school spokesman said, and was reinstated to the team, which begins spring workouts on Wednesday. Diesel, can you give me a base understanding to the open carry policy? Because, clearly, Diesel, not everyone understands the, open can policy, right? Like where can you have a White Claw? Where can you not have a White Claw? What DeMonte Capehart was packing on campus. That was a problem. I imagine he said, I didn't know. And I imagine they said, we don't care that you didn't know.
Ignorance is not an excuse for the law.
Yeah.
This is from AP News. So if anybody wants to provide any additional context to this, please do. It says, right now, South Carolina law requires anyone who wants to carry a handgun openly to get a concealed weapons permit, which requires training in gun safety and firing the weapon. Trust me, it ain't that hard to get a CWP. It says that law passed in 2021. So if you have a CWP, which I have, I could legally open carry in a place where it is legal for me to do so. Now, there are always restrictions on where you can carry. If you're a CWP holder, it is your duty as a CWP holder to be aware of all of those laws and all of the places that you cannot carry. So I don't know about the legalities on Clemson's campus. I assume, but I don't know for sure, that there are probably restrictions on openly carrying on a college campus.
I would imagine the same. In any case, good news for Clemson, good news for DeMonte Capehart. Back reinstated with the team. Next up.
3,
You know what, guys? Clemson fans are a little bit up in their feels right now. They are a little bit up in their feels. So they're up in their feels about this. Here's what happened, okay? And I got Hutch saying I'm reaching for content at this one. Well, Hutch, it's February in the upstate. What do you want me to do? It's what I believe. It's what I see. It's what I experience, okay? I've experienced a good number of Clemson fans saying the following, okay? We had a good run under Dabo. We had a good run. He's our guy no matter what. And I got a problem with that. Like, you're excusing falling short of the standard. No, I'm not talking about best is the standard. I'm talking about the win-loss percentage that Dabo set. Over the course of time in college football history, the best coaches win about 80% of their games, a winning percentage of 800. Tommy Bowden was fired at Clemson for posting a winning percentage of 615. That was clearly below the standard. But the last 3 years, Clemson has posted an average final ranking of number 16. The last 3 years, Dabo's posted a winning percentage of 750. Once you raise the bar, that's the bar. It doesn't change, okay? Never settle for a regression to the mean. And yet, Diesel, like just in the last 20 minutes, I heard from somebody that said, literally no one I know is saying this. No one you know. Texter, do you believe honestly? Do you believe honestly, okay, that really, that you guys are exposed to everyone that there is in this conference? Do you believe that, really? I mean, like, do you believe that you're exposed to everyone there is in the upstate? Do you believe that we're exposed to a greater number of people in the upstate than you are? Just because there's not people in your circle that may be saying that are excusing Dabo, believe you me when I say I've gotten a lot. I've gotten a lot.
We get those phone calls all the time. Easily 1 or 2 a week, depending on the topics and how we bring it up. Or say things to us like, Dabo has earned the right to coach as long as he wants to. I'm happy with him no matter what he does. I have faith. I trust that Dabo's going to get it done for us. Those are the people who are not willing to vocalize that things are falling off and that something should be done about it.
Guys, never lower the bar. Once a new bar has been set, hold the operation to that standard. That's the case for our show. That's the case for our station. Why shouldn't it be the case for you? Why allow the bar to be lowered again? Don't do that. Next up.
2.
At number 2 today, just for fun, if the South Carolina women played the South Carolina men, what would the score be? All right. I invite you to send your score to me via the text line at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go on the show. Okay. My guess is, and I'm going to amend this a little bit, I'll go men 100, women 50. 100 to 50, the men win. If you said, well, Mark, what about last year's South Carolina men's team versus the Lady Gamecocks last year? Last year, I'd say men 100, women 65. This year, men 100, women 50. This is not an attempt to be misogynistic. This is just an attempt to be honest with you, okay? The reality is the physicality, the size, the jumping ability, the strength would be too much.
So what you're saying is you'd have to spot the women 40 to make it a game.
Yes. And Diesel, to be fair, the men's physicality, their speed, their length, and athleticism would be way too much for us. Okay,
Of course.
It would be like, this is not a putting down the women thing. The women's team would destroy you and I.
Yeah,
destroy
of course
us,
they would.
Absolutely mutilate us. We might not score in the entire game. Okay. But the reality is, guys, like this whole men versus women, my dad recently got into this with me. He said, Mark, the women's national team could beat the men's national team. He said that to me in May of last year, soccer. And I said, Dad, it would be 10-0 men before the 10-minute mark of the first half. 10-0. Okay? Like, I just don't think you understand it. No, the women are better. Well, against their peers, yes, they're better. Against the men, they're not. John Harkes used to be the head coach of the Greenville Triumph here. And I made the mistake of asking him one time when he was in studio with us, how come our women are so much better than the men? And he goes, I'm sorry, what? He goes, do you want to see what that match would look like? Then I got it. I got where he was going with it. I got what he was saying. Okay? He's saying you don't want to see what that looks like on the pitch. What is your score? If the South Carolina men play the South Carolina women, what would the score be? Diesel, I would be curious if we posted that question, not as a poll, but just as a question on the Fan Upstate Twitter page. Hit us your scores. I say 100 to 50 men. Diesel, what do you say? What's your score?
These two teams this year.
Yeah.
I would say 110 to 65.
Diesel says 110 to 65.
Almost doubling them up.
I would say 100 to 50. What is your score, my friends? And finally,
1.
at number 1 on the show today. It's only fair if we talk about Clemson fans, some being willing to lower the bar, that we talk South Carolina's standard as well. What should the standard be? I know Gamecock fans like to feel sorry for themselves and like to lament a somewhat mediocre history. And I like to say history is just that. It's in the past. It is a true statement to say that the only thing separating South Carolina from greatness is the same thing that Clemson found. their guy, their head coach. Steve Spurrier has set the bar at South Carolina with a winning percentage of .637. No one else has done that. Right now, Shane Beamer is at .523. So what if you and I agree, okay? What if you and I agree that the standard at South Carolina is a 600 winning percentage? The best coaches deliver an 800 winning percentage. Good coaches deliver a 700 winning percentage. That level is like, James Franklin, Dan Mullen. That's like the 700 level. Jimbo Fisher is like the 700 winning percentage level. Mark Richt is the 700 winning percentage level. Good coaches, right? I'm going to say South Carolina, the standard should be 600. That would be an average season of 8-5. Tommy Bowden was fired at Clemson for a winning percentage of .615. His average season was 7.6 wins and 4.6 losses. Can we go ahead and establish that today, my friends? The standard at South Carolina is a 600 winning percentage with Steve Spurrier at .637 and Beamer at .523. I want to know if we can come to that agreement. And those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. The text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go. Of course, the phone line is the Renewal by Anderson Fan Phone. And you can get to us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube at the Fan Upstate on every one. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, and finally, email. You guys can all email the show. Mark Ryan, that is M-A-R-C Ryan at thefanupstate.com. All the different ways you can get in touch with us here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Coming up next on the show, not because of this directly, but a culmination of something that has happened mean it's time to flush this in sports. And we'll do so next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
Stream, we got to jump off of here for a live read, but we'll see you back tomorrow.